So again, welcome to the first webinar for the 2024 iteration of the Young Pacific Leaders or YPL Small Grants Program. My name is Haley Clemson, and I am an Assistant Program Officer on the Indo-Pacific Programs team at Cultural Vistas. For those who have not worked with Cultural Vistas previously, I'll share a little bit about the organization to help give some context. We're a nonprofit international exchange organization and the implementing partners for the YPL Small Grants Program, which is funded by the U.S. Department of State. The YPL Small Grants Program is made possible by the U.S. Department of State, U.S. Mission to New Zealand. This is important to note because all program deadlines and times will be synced with New Zealand time in line with them funding the program. The YPL Small Grants Program is a program under the YPL Initiative, a youth-led initiative, leadership development initiative organized by the U.S. Department of State. It started in 2018, and since it was launched, has had 4 full iterations. Throughout the YPL Small Grants Program, YPL alumni have the opportunity to apply for seed grant funding to implement innovative projects throughout the Pacific region focused on improving their communities, countries, and the region in one or more of the program's core pillars or themes. These pillars are education, environment and resource management, economic and social development, and civic leadership. To help interested alumni prepare to apply for this year's iteration of the Small Grants Program, Cultural Vistas will be hosting these webinars to provide information and guidance to help teams with their application and project organization. This first webinar is intended to help interested teams better understand what is required for the application, the program, and how to write a compelling competitive proposal for their application. There will also be 2 other webinars the next 2 weeks focused on project organization, work plans, and team responsibilities. And the 3rd webinar will be on developing a thorough and detailed budget and budget justification narrative. Each is set up to help answer your questions and support your application and proposal submission development. All webinars will be held at 9 a.m. New Zealand time via Zoom using the same link that you're using to attend this webinar. And the next webinar will be held on the 8th of December with the final and 3rd one on the 15th of December. The final application deadline, as you can see on screen, is on the 7th of January, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. New Zealand time. Although webinar attendance is not required, it is strongly encouraged for you to attend or to watch the recordings, as there will be more information provided to assist with applications, as well as a chance to answer any questions that you have in a Q&A section at the end of each webinar. It's also an opportunity to better understand the requirements for grant applications not related to YPL small grants and how you can use what you learn in your small grants applications for other grant proposals as well. For those of you joining us live today, at the end of the presentation, we will have time for live Q&A. Once we get to that section of the webinar, please raise your hand and we'll go to you for your question. You're also welcome to submit questions to the chat at any time, and I'll answer those at the end of the presentation. For those unable to attend today, you can email any questions to yplgrants@culturalvistas.org, and those will be answered and possibly discussed further during the next webinar. With that, we'll jump right in. I'd like to walk you through what is being shared on screen now. This is a brief program overview or timeline of this iteration of the YPL Small Grants Program, any important dates and things to note and keep in mind as you're applying. As I mentioned, the webinars will take place leading up to the program application deadline. The remaining webinar dates will be on 8th of December and 15th of December at 9 a.m. New Zealand time. And the webinar topics will include today's webinar, which is on how to develop and create a compelling grant proposal, where we'll go through the online application and discuss any requirements or things to be thinking about as you fill out your application itself. Next week's topic will be organizing a project and the core project team, discussing all project responsibilities, different roles, and how to choose a strong project team that will help you succeed in your small grants project. Finally, on the 15th of December, we will discuss budget creation and project management. So everything you should keep in mind throughout your project and how applying in a certain way can help you manage your project throughout the implementation period. Also listed in the timeline is the application deadline, which again is the 7th of January, 2024. I'm sure you'll hear this date quite a bit throughout the webinars, but it's important to note. And the expected notification time of selected applications will be February 2024. Cultural Vistas will notify selected projects and non-selected projects via email. So you can look for a response in whether your project has been accepted or not, which will arrive in your inbox sometime in February. Once the selected grantees are finalized and teams have confirmed their participation in the program, Cultural Vistas will begin travel arrangements for all 3 core team members to attend a mandatory kickoff workshop that will be held in Auckland, New Zealand over the days of the 19th and 20th of March, 2024. The kickoff workshop will prepare the selected core team members for the beginning of the implementation of their YPL small grants projects. If you apply, please save this date, as attendance during the workshop is required for all core team members. Teams will implement projects from April 2024, immediately following the kickoff workshop, until September 2024. Once the project implementation period is complete, Cultural Vistas will arrange a debriefing seminar to discuss the learnings, challenges, and successes of your projects and their implementation. This is projected to be held in October 2024 in Auckland, New Zealand, and 1 core team member must act as a representative for each team to attend this debriefing seminar. The expenses for both the kickoff workshop and the debriefing events will be covered by the YPL Small Grants Program and do not need to be budgeted for in your team's budget. Cultural Vistas will be making all arrangements, but team attendance is required. So please save these dates if you plan on applying. To start thinking about your project and application, I want to direct everyone to the YPL Small Grants website. Sorry. So these are good, important websites to note, including the social media and culturalvistas.org/YPL. So this is the website that you can go to for further information. Apologies while it loads. This information has a lot of, This website has a lot of important information on the YPL Small Grants Program, including any webinar recordings that you can visit if you're unable to attend in person, and frequently asked questions. You can also access the budget template on this website at any time, which will help you in your application process as it is required to use for application. Again, the recordings will be posted here after each week, so you can go back and watch the webinar recordings and get any additional information that you need. If you have any issues accessing the online application, please email us, yplgrants@culturalvistas.org. We can also offer PDF applications to those who are unable to complete the online application. The online application can be accessed in the YPL Alumni Network emails that have been sent out, as well as on the YPL Alumni Facebook page and social media. If you have any issues accessing that online application, please reach out via email and we'll be happy to provide that link for you. So before applying, it's important to ensure that you are eligible to participate for the program. I'll now show you what that online application looks like so you know what is required of you ahead of time. So you need to understand the requirements for your project application proposal, as well as the program timeline when you're getting ready to apply. All eligibility requirements are listed in the online application, and the eligibility requirements are: at least 1 team member must be a former YPL alumni, so have participated in a YPL event. All core team members must be between the ages of 25 to 40 years of age. Projects must address at least one of the 4 YPL pillar themes. To remind you, these pillars are education, environment and resource management, economic and social development, and civic leadership. So US citizens must demonstrate that their project is Pacific regionally focused outside of the United States, be part of a cross-country team, or provide a cultural exchange element. This is due to the US federal regulations outlined by the funding that makes this program possible. This only applies if you're applying from within a US affiliated Pacific state or territory, but it is important to consider if you are applying. The core project team members, in other words, the project leader, treasurer, and secretary, will be required to attend the kickoff workshop in Auckland in March, and project leaders or another project representative will be required to attend the debriefing seminar in October 2024, also in Auckland. So these dates are important to note as attendance will be required, and all projects should demonstrate a project timeline matching the YPL small grants implementation period around these workshopping dates. So the implementation period will be 6 months and will begin immediately following the kickoff workshop in April 2024, going through the end of September 2024. Lastly, previous YPL small grants program core team members, so any previous project leaders, project treasurers, or project secretaries are ineligible to reapply for the YPL small grants program. Now, at the top of the application page, you can also see an overview of general information about the YPL Small Grants Program. Most notably, a reminder that while you're eligible to apply for up to $10,000 US in funds, you must be able to demonstrate that your budget and anticipated expenses match the funding that you are requesting. So when you start a proposal, think about the amount that your project needs to succeed. You don't necessarily need to request that full amount of $10,000 US, and we highly recommend that teams only apply for the amount that they need for their work plan. All projects should demonstrate a program timeline matching the small grants implementation period of 6 months. And throughout the application, there's also a description of roles of the 3 core team members that you can use to follow. One of the things that we emphasize for the YPL Small Grants Program is that there must be 3 core team members: the project leader, the project treasurer, and the project secretary. This is required for several reasons, but most notably that dividing the core responsibilities among 3 team members keeps the project balanced and shares the responsibility across the team and project. We don't want all of the work landing on just one team member. Applying with less than 3 core team members does not demonstrate project sustainability and your ability to carry out the project successfully. If you do not have 3 core team members, we strongly encourage you to find another core team member to fill that 3rd role. Everyone on the team does not have to be a YPL alumni. This is important to keep in mind as you're looking for team members, but at least one core team member does. So one person applying for the small grants program from each project team should be a YPL alumni, but all 3 do not have to be. A few things to keep in mind as you are picking your team members regarding the treasurer position. They do not have to have a bank account with an already established nonprofit or a registered organization. However, they just need to have a valid bank account that can receive transfers from the United States. We'll discuss more on core team members and organizing a project in the 2nd webinar, so you can look forward to that. For now, it's just important to remember that as you put together your project proposal, you should include all required aspects of the application and project, including all 3 core team members and their information. This is critical for highly competitive grant funding opportunities, and it signals that you're able to comply with all requirements set out by the funder and follow the structure that's asked of you. Once you've confirmed that you're eligible to apply and you choose to participate and submit an application, it's time to review the application and proposal and make sure that you comply with all dates surrounding the application. This online application form is the first of 5 required pieces for your proposal submission. A completed YPL Small Grants application also includes, other than this fully completed online application, you'll additionally submit a project abstract, which can be no more than 100 words, a project description with a maximum of 1,000 words, a completed provided project budget up to $10,000 US. I'll show you in just a few moments what that budget template looks like and where you can find it on your application. You'll also be required to submit resumes or CVs of all core team members and photo pages of passports of all core team members as well. I recommend having all of your documents ready at the time of your application, so once you're ready to hit submit, you have everything ready to go. After the instructions and information on the application, the first section of the online app is for background information on the core project team. The project leader is the overall head of the project that you are proposing and will be in charge of the project implementation during the grant period. This individual will be the main point of contact with Cultural Vistas, the grantor, for project updates and any changes that need to be made. This person can submit the application information on behalf of the whole core team, or the core team members can all work on the application and submit together in tandem. Second, we have the project treasurer. So the project treasurer will handle all of the program finances. The project treasurer should be trustworthy, organized, and have bank account information where they can receive funds from the United States. The project treasurer will need to keep all receipts and detail the expenses paid for with the YPL Small Grants funds. This is why organization is so important, and we will delve more into those team responsibilities and why it's important to have a team that will keep track of good records in the second webinar next week. Lastly, we have the project secretary. So the project secretary is the person who will compile and submit all monthly reports and track updates on the project. The project secretary will handle project marketing and communications, as well as they must be organized and detail-oriented. Failure to provide these up-to-date information and project reports each month could result in the loss of funding. So this is, again, why it's important to pick team members that you can count on, as the success of your project will depend on the core team that you put together when applying for your YPL Small Grants project. So the information that you provide for each person on the core team should match the passport for each of the core team members as you are filling out the form. So legal surname, given name, those should match what the passport says when you submit that information as well. We also have space for a preferred surname and given name if you'd like to be addressed differently, date of birth, pronouns, email address, phone number, and contact information. So this is all important to submit together with your resumes as you compile your team members. So once you complete the team information, the next section is on the Small Grants project information. So here you'll need to include the name of your project, the pillars that are associated with your project. You can select more than one if you feel that your project closely addresses more than one of the pillars. But you must select at least one, as that is a requirement of applying for the YPL Small Grants program. You'll also answer a brief description of your team's previous involvement with YPL. So this is where you want to highlight that one of your team members is a YPL alumni and that you are eligible to apply for the funding. We would also like additional information on the country or countries of your core team members, as well as where the project will be taking place. Although some of the information collected in this section may be included in the document uploads that you submit, we also want this information here, and we ask that you complete this section in full as well to increase the clarity of some of the specific information in your project application. You'll notice on the online application, there's also a section for supporting documents. You'll be able to upload all these supporting documents directly in the online application by submitting file uploads. So the next section, this section allows applicants to upload all of their required documents and any supporting documents. The first 5 attachments that you see listed in the online application are required. However, there is also an optional upload. The final upload can be any additional information that you want to provide, such as PowerPoints, any supplemental material that's not required, but you feel helps give the idea of your project and the work that you'll be doing. And these documents can be uploaded in any format, including Word documents, PDF, Excel, spreadsheets, PowerPoint, or photos, etc., whatever you're able to submit. To go over the supporting documents in brief and what's required and why we ask for them, the project abstract is the first submission that you'll have to make. It's a required brief summary of your project in less than 100 words. So this should be the main goal of your project, the main audience for your project, who you'll be working with, and what you'll be doing. This abstract should really be your elevator pitch and should be concise, but also provide enough detail so that someone without a lot of background would be able to understand what you're doing. And it's really an overview that will be used to outline and highlight your project and the work that you're doing if you are selected. But again, it should be concise and explain your project directly in as few words as possible. The next supporting document you'll need to upload is the project description. So this is where you can go into additional details and a narrative on the work and the steps that you plan on taking to achieve the goal of your project. You can also provide some detail or explanation as to why the funding amount that you are requesting relates to your project goals. And this is where you can describe the longer term impact and plans for your project. You have 1,000 words to provide all of this and should do so in a thorough and compelling overview of your project. Use this project description as a way to explain your work plan, ideas, goals, and overall description. When writing your description, remember that you have insight into your proposed project that the application reviewers might not have. Be sure to address what problem your project solves and how you plan to carry out your project with this in mind, providing context to what you hope to see out of your project and the impact that it will have on the community. For both the project abstract and the project description, you can include headers and footers, and these do not count towards your word count. It is recommended that you provide some kind of branding to your documents that you upload, other than the resumes and the budget, so that they can be associated with your project. This also shows that you have given some thought towards the branding and marketing that your project will use, and it shows your funder that you have considered this in length. You can always change these smaller details such as the branding after your application, and it does not need to be set in stone because you applied with it. However, applying with this ties your uploads together and offers a cohesive description and showing of your project and the thought that you have put into it. An additional requirement for upload are your resumes and CVs of all core team members. We will also need these, and they should be no more than 2 pages in length. So we do recommend that you keep to this limit. It's important and that you do so, and it shows that you're following the program requirements, which is always good when applying to any grant funding, as it's important to follow the guidelines outlined for you in the application. Additionally, you'll also need to upload a project budget. So the budget is required for all applicants, and we ask that you do use the template provided within the online application when completing your budget and uploading it to your application. So you'll see on the application here, there is space. You can click either of these links and it will pull up the budget template, which you can see here. It's just one page, easy to follow. All of it is calculated directly. There's also additional instructions in the budget template that you should be sure to follow. And we'll delve into this deeply during the third webinar of this series, where we'll talk specifically about budgeting and budgeting in your application. So applicants can apply for up to $10,000 US, but again, you should only apply for what is needed to implement your project successfully. You will see in the upload sections that there is the template. Again, it is required. Please be sure to use this in your application submission. Lastly, we'll also ask you to upload the photo page of passports for all of the core team members in your project. This is important as travel for the kickoff workshop and debriefing seminar are required parts of the program. And then we ask that each team member upload the biometric or picture page of their passport to show that they are allowed to travel and will be able to do so. This is important so that we know that you'll be able to attend these, and your passport should be valid through the 1st of May 2025 in order to attend that debriefing seminar that takes place in October 2024. Lastly, for the last of the uploads, you'll see that there is an optional upload. This is for the supporting documents section. Again, this is optional, not by any means required, although we do recommend it because any additional support for your application always helps when reviewing. However, it again is not required. So this could include PowerPoint, worksheet, budget narrative, photos, mock-ups, a logo, any agendas that you may be thinking through at the time of application. And this should be only 5 pages total. So if you are using different mediums, please be sure to combine them into one final document for this upload. Finally, the last section of the application that is the terms and conditions, where you'll need to check off all 4 boxes and sign your agreement. Once you're finished completing this form and uploading all of the documents, you may submit the online application and you'll receive an email as well as being taken to a thank you page on the online application. So please be sure that you review and make sure that you have this notification in your email, as that confirms the successful submission. If we receive from you all of the above information and attachments that we've gone over, then you've completed a full and complete application for review, and you'll have a competitive application. So now that we've taken a look at the full application, I also want to highlight some information for you about grant competitions in general and application preparation that may help you in beginning to develop your project and completing this application. So before you can begin an application, you have to think about what you are applying for and how you are going to demonstrate your idea, concept, and project. And how is it going to have a measurable impact and be actionable and be shown through an actionable work plan. It's important to remember that grant applications are competitive. Everything you submit is going to be reviewed as part of a whole package. So it's important to make sure that the information is comprehensive, compelling, and understandable to an outside reader who has no previous context or information about your project. If the project addresses a challenge in your community that is unique to your community, be sure to explain that challenge and how your project seeks to address it, as the reviewer of the application may not have that context. The project proposal also needs to demonstrate how ready you are to implement your project. That means that you have to describe the project in as much detail as possible and show that you've thought it through. You don't want the proposal reader to be left with any questions about the project because you won't be there at the time of review to answer any questions or clarify any of that information. Project selection, again, is not a guarantee, and project submissions need to have a proposal that meets all of the online criteria and can explain the impact of the work that you're aiming to complete. Be sure to carefully read the outline criteria and eligibility requirements and any other requirements that the application outlines for what you need to include in your proposal or application. Please remember that because it is competitive, if your application is missing information, that will impact how it is reviewed. So, given that, you must address each point and answer each question asked in the request for proposals. And while you're developing your application and project submission, it's helpful to create a checklist of the items that you need to include in that proposal. Then before you submit the proposal, go through the checklist and make sure that you have included all the required items and that you have addressed all of the questions that are asked of you. This may seem very simple, but it's very important because if you don't answer a question right, or you don't answer a question, or don't include any of the required items, your proposal may not be competitive. For example, if you're writing a grant proposal that requires an itemized budget as well as a budget narrative, and you don't take the time to create that narrative and explain the line items in your budget, the grantor or reviewer of that grant application may not understand the information and of why your budget line items are needed. So again, it's important to explain and give context and background and submit all required pieces to the application. It's also very important to be realistic about the costs for the project and the timeline in which you can complete the project. So you need to think through the budget and the ability to accomplish the goals that you set out for within the proposal budget and timeline. We recommend considering doing some budget research as you create your application for your proposal in order to have a realistic and achievable budget and goals. Small grants projects can focus on multiple problems or opportunities. But again, it's important to be realistic in creating your proposal, and your proposal should demonstrate how holistically the project addresses all the challenges that you set out to achieve solutions for. So don't try and propose anything too big or costly. And remember that implementation period is only in a 6-month time frame, which is actually a very short timeline for most projects. We often receive feedback from other YPL small grants alumni that 6 months is quite a short amount of time. Although it sounds like it's a lot of time, it flies by as you're trying to implement the projects. So just keep that in mind at the application period of while you're creating your proposal, because you need to be realistic about what you're able to achieve during that time. Lastly, tell a story of your project. Keep it factual and clear, and also compelling. Help the reviewer understand why you've created the project, what opportunity you are trying to provide, or what challenge you're trying to overcome with your project idea, and how you plan to do that as well. Think about it holistically at every step and illustrate that in your proposal you have considered some of the following questions. What is the issue or challenge? Why is it important, and why are you developing or implementing a project to address the challenge? What work has already been done in this area or by your project? How are you going to solve or address the issues with the YPL Small Grants Funds? How can the work that you would accomplish through the program be utilized post-grant period? And connected to that, is your project sustainable, and will it have a lasting impact past the end of the implementation period? So A few tips on this slide as well. Now that you've gone over the requirements and the resources for the application, if you're wondering, what are we looking for when we're reviewing applications for the YPL Small Grants Program? So it's important to have a project that is associated with the YPL pillars. So reminding you again, those are education, environment and resource management, civic leadership, and economic and social development. Additionally, or it does not have to directly align with all of these pillars, but it's important to have a connection to at least one of those pillars. Additionally, we look for feasibility. So the application needs to show that you have a plan for the 6-month implementation period and that your budget matches what you are proposing and is reasonable. One of the biggest pieces of reflection, again, that we've received from previous grantees is to keep it realistic in project size and understand the amount of time that you have to work with. Excuse me. Additionally, sustainability and scalability. So it's important to note that even though this project implementation time is a short period and time frame of only 6 months, we encourage everyone to think long-term with project impact. How can the small grants program further a project along or get a project off the ground that could then continue past the implementation period? Considering either plans or ideas for your project to continue to impact the target community beyond the small grants funding timeframe will have a big impact on how your application is viewed from the get-go. Ask yourself, how can the project grow in size or impact, and anticipate how it could have impact into the future past that grant period. This shows a thoughtful and strategic project idea. Demonstrate why the funding from the 6 months of the program will impact a bigger strategy and help your communities even longer than for those 6 months. Additionally, program impact. The submitted proposal should describe who the project's target community of impact or audience is and how the project will positively impact that population. It's also important to demonstrate what you're doing in that time frame. And in your application, you can also describe the continuation of the project and impact, which is something that we strongly encourage. As a reminder, we welcome projects that have an emphasis on regional cooperation and collaboration. Although we understand that this is not always possible with the projects that are proposed, we always support cross-cultural collaboration and cooperation either among YPL alumni or stretching a project throughout multiple countries. That can be harder to anticipate at this planning stage of the implementation, but there will be opportunity later to build out this cross-cultural communication and opportunities for your project. So if you're looking for different examples of projects and that have been previously funded, there are many places that you can look for inspiration. On the YPL website, so culturalvistas.org/YPL, there is an interactive map of all previous YPL small grants programs as well as other activities that can be a great place to look for past projects and inspiration. I also recommend visiting the YPL social media. The We Are Young Pacific Leaders Facebook page has what are called small grant spotlights from previous grantees, which are video interviews that go in depth about different project work plans and work and impacts that previous YPL small grants projects have done. If you have any questions about these resources or need help locating them down the line, please don't hesitate to reach out. But that is it. We've reached the end of the presentation. I'll go ahead and address any questions that have come into the chat so far. And if there are no questions in the chat, We also have time for general Q&A and time to answer any questions that you may have. If you're watching the webinar from a recording and were unable to join us live, please email us ypl@culturalvistas.org with any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to address those questions in the next 2 webinars to come. All right, we can stop the recording now, and I'm happy to take